Dr. Berg here. Today, we're going to talk about how to strengthen your legs. Now, this isn't just a general video on making your legs stronger. This is about increasing your longevity. The strength in your legs and what they can do to support you is actually one of the best indicators of how long you're going to live. Why? Because your legs give you early warning signs about much more dangerous conditions in your body. This becomes even more relevant the older you get. So if you're over 50, you need to be watching this. If you're under 50, you should watch it too, so you know how to prevent problems and use your legs as a gauge for the rest of your body. Let's start with number one, peripheral neuropathy. This is usually seen when you have diabetes. What happens with diabetes is that high blood sugar destroys both the vascular system and the nervous system because high levels of sugar are toxic. The reason people with diabetes start to get numbness, pain, tingling, or burning specifically in the bottom of their feet first, sometimes fingertips, is simple. You have a super long nerve, and the further that nerve is away from the heart, the more a problem shows up there because it's getting slightly less oxygen, blood flow, and nutrition. When you have peripheral neuropathy on the bottom of your feet, you must realize what's actually going on. This is a blood sugar problem, meaning you likely have prediabetes or diabetes. Normally, the body maintains very tight control over blood sugar. Ideal sugar across all of your blood should only be about 1 teaspoon. But if you include all the starches, you're talking about 50 to 100 teaspoons of sugar, including the hidden ones, going through your body. If normal blood sugar is 1 teaspoon, you can imagine what that excess sugar does to your arteries and what your body does to remove it. It removes it like crazy using a vacuum cleaner called insulin. Normal sugar is 1 teaspoon, but diabetes is only 2 teaspoons of sugar. So what does that mean? It means the body hates sugar in the blood, so it removes it. When you have 2 teaspoons, you have an insulin problem. Either there is so much insulin resistance that it can't work anymore, or the pancreas is exhausted and can't put out as much insulin, so you no longer have that vacuum cleaner to suck it out. The blood sugar goes high, and that is where you get all the artery problems I'm going to talk about, especially in the bottom of your foot. Too much sugar is deadly for both your circulation and your nerves. All right, let's go to number two, ankle and foot edema. When I'm traveling or visiting somewhere, I always see someone wearing sandals or even shoes with the bottom of their feet completely swollen. I can see their lower legs are puffy and I want to walk up to them, but I don't. Those people have serious edema. If you were to press into the ankle, it would leave an indentation that stays stuck. That's called pitting edema. That's not a small thing, it's a big problem. Or they'll take their socks off and it leaves a serious indentation around the lower legs. What's really bizarre is I actually had a version of this earlier in my life, which is just wild to think about. But this indicates that circulation is so bad, it has affected the kidney, liver, or heart, and we're getting less oxygen to the feet because the blood isn't circulating. It's just pooling there. Think about how much stress that puts on the heart. Here's how it works. The arterial system pushes blood out to your extremities, your fingers and toes. It gets to the end of this long chain, goes through tiny blood vessels called capillaries, then crosses into the venous system. The venous system returns it back to the heart, it goes to the lungs to get reoxygenated, and the cycle repeats. If you have a pooling of blood or fluid at the end of this chain, at the bottom of your foot, that's a backup of the system. That is a situation where the heart is working extra hard just to push through that inertia. Number two is a really good indicator of a much deeper problem you should not ignore. You should do something about it, and from my viewpoint, naturally, because often they'll just put you on a blood thinner and monitor it. Number three, restless leg syndrome. What is that? It's when your legs become very, very restless, usually at night. I had this condition. It drove me crazy. I would get up at 4 a.m. and just have to pound my legs because they had so much energy in them. I couldn't relax or sleep. Little did I know, the diet is responsible. Consuming too much sugar and starch. I was doing a lot of ice cream and alcohol at the time. Really depletes certain vitamins and actually causes too much lactic acid buildup, which creates a cramping sensation and lack of circulation. There are remedies for this. Number one, change your diet. The other thing is to take vitamin B1. B1 is a great solution, as is magnesium. Both in combination counter the effect of this high sugar diet. You must realize what created the deficiency in the first place, the high refined carbohydrate diet. So both actions. Change the diet and take this nutrition. Resolve this. The problem with restless leg syndrome is that it keeps you up and prevents you from sleeping. That lack of sleep shortens your lifespan. There's a massive connection between a lack of sleep and increased risk of heart attacks, strokes, and it puts you at risk for diabetes because it increases cortisol. Other than that, you're totally fine with number 3. Let's talk about number 4, deep vein thrombosis. Thrombosis is a blood clot. One major danger is a clot breaking off from your legs and going up into the lungs. That is not good. It can kill you. Over 95% of all heart attacks and strokes are caused by a clot, more than by the plaque buildup in arteries. This is something to pay attention to, and it's very important because certain things increase your risk of getting a clot, which I'll cover in the second part. But 2 things, stress, and then we come back to this high carbohydrate diet again. Let's go to number 5, peripheral artery disease. This is artery disease not necessarily around the heart, but in other places in your body. We have atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, that extends beyond just the coronary artery of your heart. I'll get into more on what to do about that, but the inside of your artery has this single layer cell called the endothelial layer of tissue. It is key to keep this tissue healthy, because if you don't, it creates constriction, hardening of the arteries, and more rigidity. You create inflammation, and then the body comes in with a Band-Aid, trying to heal it with plaquing. That's the Band-Aid. But the bigger issue is clot formation that can actually break off, go into the brain, and cause a stroke. A lot more people die of clots. But in this situation, we're talking more about plaquing. Let's go to number 6, chronic venous insufficiency. When talking about the veins, we're talking about a pooling of blood in the veins. Often, this is associated with being sedentary and not getting out to exercise because you need muscular movement to get that blood back up to the heart. So many people are not moving enough, and so the venous system is insufficient. It's stagnant blood, which puts more pressure on the heart because the heart has to work harder to push this blood. One interesting thing about this is you'll see discoloration in the lower legs and ankles. There will be different little spots, more of a browning effect, hair loss, thinner skin, and definitely pitting edema. What's happening is we're getting a lack of oxygen in the lower part of the legs, and this can shorten your lifespan. And then number 7, we get sarcopenia. This is age-related muscle loss. It is one of the top predictors of mortality when you get older, just by losing muscle, because your muscle is a very important metabolic organ. You have a lot of mitochondria, the energy factories, in there, which help you burn off sugar. When you lose this muscle, you lose a very important buffer for living longer. This is a combination of aging, poor diet, and lack of the cofactors, especially magnesium, vitamin D, and zinc, but also having a more sedentary lifestyle. It's a combination of animal protein and exercise that helps you retain and maintain muscle. I am telling you, as you get older, you should learn from the mistakes of others and do whatever you can to maintain a consistent exercise program. Have a goal of becoming more fit every single year because you are up against aging. You want to build up like a buffer, an extra reserve of fitness that will compensate for this aging process that everyone has to go through and hopefully maintain as much muscle as you possibly can as you age. Let's first talk about type 2 diabetes. That relates to the peripheral neuropathy I mentioned, but it's also related to many other things because the more problems you have with blood sugar, the more you'll have problems with the inside of your arteries. It is just bizarre to me that when you go to the doctor and get diagnosed with diabetes, you are not instantly told to get on a low-carb diet. Instead, you're told, we're going to manage your blood sugar. And they even give you glucose pills, saying, if your blood sugar goes too low, take these sugar pills to maintain it. It's all about managing the downstream effects of this underlying root cause, which is basically eating too many carbs. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I will say I don't know if this is intentional, though it probably is. Everything in medicine is so siloed, it intentionally keeps the cause and effect relationship from being found or hidden. We silo doctors. They are highly specialized in this and this and this, but we're not connecting the dots between those silos. The whole system is set up not to look at root causes or lifestyle factors. They're managing the downstream effects. Even in research, everything is like, well, there's an association. They can't be too positive that this causes this. Or they'll say, let's do screening for early detection so we can get you on medications earlier. There's really no prevention going on, unfortunately. But with type 2 diabetes, you must attempt a low carb diet and intermittent fasting, 2 meals a day, or even 1 meal a day. Why? Because there is hardcore research showing that you can reverse type 2 diabetes in 10 weeks if you go low carb. That's only one thing you can improve. You can also improve fatty liver, your arterial system, the circulation in your legs, and definitely this peripheral neuropathy. Two remedies I recommend if you have peripheral neuropathy, which will actually help heal the nerves on the bottom of your foot or fingertips. Benfotiamine is one. If you buy some benfotiamine, just take 4 pills spread throughout the day. It works like a charm. And then alpha lipoic acid. Both of these are miraculous at helping you reverse peripheral neuropathy. Now, of course, you want to get to the root cause too. You want to fix the diet as well. Let's talk about the lymph system and the veins. Most people who are sedentary get a pooling of fluid in the lower extremities in their legs because the heart doesn't necessarily push the venous supply that happens with exercise or movement. But there's a really cool muscle called the soleus, which is part of the calf muscle. This muscle is very, very unique. And there is a gentleman who actually came up with the Soleus push-up. This is something anyone can do, especially if they are sedentary or sit a lot at the computer. You could literally do a Soleus push-up and create dramatic effects on your blood sugars and your circulation because you can actually push the blood back up to the heart and take the stress off the heart. It's like a second heart in your calf. What's unique about the Soleus is it doesn't get tired. It has incredible endurance and is very efficient. I highly recommend you do it when you're sitting. I'm going to show you a video right now to understand the person who actually developed this and learn how to do it. I want you to picture your ankle joint. Sometimes this is where it's good to have a friend who might put their hand both on the top of the foot and on the front of the ankle, right where the ankle is straightening up. So if you picture the foot and the ankle coming together, what you're really doing is just straightening that joint. You're straightening it out, and that's the motion you should think about. That'll help you avoid a lot of mistakes that we'll talk about later that I see some doctors putting videos up for their patients are doing incorrectly. So the next point is that as you do that, picture that you're lightly pressing against the ball of the foot, which is where the toes insert into the foot, that MTP joint. Just press lightly as you're straightening up that ankle. That's a good thing. You don't want to press too hard, otherwise you'll start to use your upper leg muscles. We want all of these muscles in the thigh completely relaxed. Then the next point is that you want to do a smooth, dynamic motion. The rate can vary quite a bit, but what we really want to think about is move it such that you're going in a fluid motion, like I'm doing here with my leg. It's just going up and down, up and down. Very smooth, fluid motion. Don't jerk it. You don't need to jerk and pause. Again, there are some points that we'll talk about later. One last thing I want to mention about the muscles. At rest, your muscles only consume 15% of the energy. Your brain consumes 20% of the energy in a resting state. So if you're more sedentary and eating a good amount of calories and you're thinking, oh, my muscles will burn these off, it's only tapping into a small percentage of that energy. Well, 15%. This is why it's so important to exercise on a regular, consistent basis. Let's talk about sarcopenia for a second. This is a condition as you get older where the muscles get smaller and smaller and smaller and you get weaker and weaker. There is an interesting test called the sitting rising test, and I'm going to show you a video on this in a second. This is a test that is linked to longevity. After you watch the video, I'm going to see if you can do this. I recommend doing it on a surface that's not too slippery, but you're basically going to go down into a sitting position and then try to stand up without using your arms. Let me show you how to do that right now. However, is there value to being more graceful getting up off of the floor? Absolutely. It's an indicator of having good, just strength in general, but especially your core and hip strength. So here's what they recommend, and I'll just kind of show you as a starting point to get up off the floor without using your hands or coming up to your knees. Crisscross the legs, and can you just sit down first? How far can you sit down? Can you come up here? Then what they want you to be able to do is, can you cross under, and then maybe give a little bit of a push or a little bit of a swing forward, but can you come up there without using your hands? So let's tackle that part first. If that's a complete chore for you, probably just practice squats. How far can you take your squat down? Can you go into what they call an Asian squat, sitting down real deep through here, maybe keeping your hands and your knees connected? I like to push my hips back. It looks weird, it looks kind of wild and crazy, but that's something nice to help with that hip mobility, but just doing squats here. Maybe you find boxes, maybe a little yoga block, maybe you find a book. Can you just practice sitting on something just a little bit elevated, keep your chest up, and then come up there? So these are ways you can practice just that basic squat position. You saw that I did what they call the pistol squat or single leg squat. You just get a chair and just practice how far down can I go and then come up if you want to do that single leg version right there. Next, I've got what are called hip switches. These help with some finesse, agility, and mobility in the hips. Option 1, just lean back. You want to get in through here, back and forth. They kind of look like a little windshield wiper movement in here to get this. Just think, kind of have your knees bent and then just fall one way. Let both knees go this way and then let both knees go this way. You can use your hands for support behind you. You can try to progress without using your hands. And then finally, maybe you can try to keep a little more upright. So don't bend through here, keep more upright, and then do it here, and then here. For anybody who, you know what, I don't necessarily need to be able to get up without using my hands, but maybe I could get to a knee and then come up. What you can do is keep that momentum going. We're here and then come up here. Now, if you haven't already tried this test, put the video on pause and go ahead and try it right now. And then comment down below if you're able to do it or not. Let's talk about edema for a second. I mentioned that being a kidney, liver, or heart problem. You basically have a situation where the blood is pooling in the lower part of your body, and you desperately need to push that back up with the Soleus push-up, as well as walking and exercising. But don't forget potassium. Potassium has a fantastic way of offsetting sodium and pushing fluid out. It is a natural diuretic, and we need like 4,700 milligrams of potassium every single day. Rarely does anyone get that much. It's a myth that potassium is bad for the kidneys. What is true is if you have late-stage kidney disease, you should get with your doctor before taking any magnesium. But if you don't have advanced kidney disease, taking more potassium or even normal amounts of potassium, an electrolyte powder can actually push out a good amount of this fluid. But also, go low carb and do intermittent fasting, because carbohydrates are one big cause of this as well. So many people who go on a low-carb ketogenic diet will notice within 2 days that they will drop 7 to 11 pounds. A lot of that is water weight, the extra fluid on their body that will go away. No, this is nitric oxide. Okay, nitric oxide is a compound that helps support the inside of the arteries, that endothelial layer. It helps relax and vasodilate the arteries. The question is, how do we increase it? Exercise, the sun, infrared, UV increase nitric oxide, nasal breathing, breathing through your nose, especially when you're sleeping, can increase nitric oxide. More vitamin D will help increase nitric oxide. Probably one of the most potent things you can do. If we're talking about food, the top food that will increase nitrates that turn into nitric oxide is arugula. That's the type of salad I consume. Also beets. I take an organic beet juice powder and I actually put it in cacao, raw chocolate powder. I mix it in some raw milk a little bit about 2 hours after I drink coffee in the morning, because that cacao has polyphenols right here that greatly increase nitric oxide, and I just combine it with the beets. It's a real interesting flavor. I like it. If you put it in water, it's a little nastier, but in raw milk, it seems to work out great. I also put it in the blender to blend it up really nicely. But that's a super way to increase nitric oxide. Also, magnesium increases nitric oxide. The things that decrease nitric oxide, smoking, pollution, stress, being too sedentary, alcohol, refined carbs and sugar, PPIs and antacid, and also mouthwash. All right, next thing, I've already talked about this several times. Regular, consistent exercise. Let's say, for example, you're a procrastinator, or let's say you don't have time to exercise. Micro exercises. Very short exercises throughout the day, even if it's like 1 to 2 minutes, can actually be equivalent to a longer period of exercise. So just do as much as you can. If you have a choice between an elevator and walking the stairs, run up the stairs. If you're on the computer a lot, take frequent breaks and go do some type of short exercise. It's cumulative. But I want you to really start increasing the amount of motion you put in your body and, of course, pair that with a good amount of sleep because we want to recover from the exercise. Now, if you are over the age of 50, I briefly mentioned sarcopenia. I have a much more thorough video on this. I think it would be very beneficial for you to watch, and I put it up right here. Check it out right now.